This is gonna be cool.
The topics and opinions expressed on the Dudes and Beer podcast are intended for an audience of 18 and up and are solely those of the host and guest. They neither reflect the opinions or values of either the sponsors of Dudes and Beer or your mother. I mean, seriously, have you ever heard these guys? They'll talk about anything.
Whoa, hey, you think they're gonna show it? They'll probably just blur it out. Whoa, check it out, Beavis.
Grab your beverages and turn up your interweb. Solving the world's problems 12 ounces at a time. It's Dudes and Beer. Well, hello everybody, and welcome to episode 88 of Dudes and Freaking Beer. Two infinity signs turned up like an hourglass is what we got tonight, episode 88. I am Chris Jordan, your host. With me, as always, is Stephen Bishop. And tonight, once again, our very special guest and friend, he came on the short bus, Stone Winchester. What? How you doing, my friend? How you been?
How you doing?
Yeah. We're just funning with you. But we're so glad that you're here tonight because we're talking about a favorite topic, a topic close to our hearts, at least mine and Steve-O's.
Right.
We're talking about aliens tonight, specifically about the NSA recently saying that. Coming out with a white paper declassifying the fact that they actually paid somebody years ago to decode 29 alien messages that came from extraterrestrial origin, and he came up with an algorithm that did so and put them into human characters to spell out. And we will get into that and other topics as such whenever we get back from this message from our sponsors. Hey, are you a musician? Do you play guitar, bass, or synthesizers? Are you a studio engineer looking for that different sound? Well, fret no longer. Austin Hot Mods is there for you. From Boss to Ibanez, DoD to EHX and more, Austin Hot Mods provides over 50 different modifications and customizations to some of the most popular guitar pedals on the market, from vintage to modern. So if you're looking for that boutique custom sound on a Craigslist budget, look no further. Contact Austin Hot Mods today and mention that you heard it here on the Dudes and Beer podcast for 5% off your first guitar pedal modification. Visit them online at austinhotmods.com. Texas owned and operated and home of the Mod of the Month deal. That website again is austinhotmods.com.
A little louder.
And we are back. There you go. Is that a little bit better on the volume there, Stone? All right, yeah. I am actually pouring us a little bit of Liberty Lunch from Independence Brewing here in Austin. This is a pale ale. This is the last one out of a 6-pack. I had to bring it tonight. Our friend Julie Connolly brought it the other night. Mm-hmm. I actually sat down and watched a Gilmore's Girl marathon with my wife and her. Yeah.
Gilmore
I grew a little bit. inside.
With the Women's March, you felt
it was. Well, I mean, I'm an open-minded kind of guy, and I was like, I'll take part with the ladies. So Julie brought some beer for me, and this was one of them. So a little bit of Liberty Lunch here.
Very IPA.
Yeah, but it's got a nice light finish to it, though. It's not really heavy.
Yeah, it does got that IPA.
And I enjoyed it over the week. I really did.
Carbach or something.
She brought that and some Zoe, and I'm always a fan of Zoe by Hops and Grain. I love that brew.
Yeah, me
it's
too.
really
I
great.
Like
Stone actually brought some Shiner Cold Brew, one of their new
cold brew coffee
one
ale.
Of their new ales that came out.
It's an interesting label.
Steve-O brought another one by I can't remember the brewing company here in Austin. No, the Werewolf Killers are mine.
I was like, it's Coors Light.
I brought the Werewolf Killers.
What the hell did I bring?
Yeah.
Damn, what the...
Well, pull it out, dude.
Yeah, let's pull it out.
Pull one out. Jeez. One beer doesn't go far between three people in a tasting. Steve-O.
I pulled it out all right.
Jeez.
Broke the fridge.
You got a problem, bro. All right, Steve-O just officially destroyed a piece of equipment. And thank God I didn't hear any bottles break, but I did hear them hit the ground.
They did. They're tough.
Because they're Texas made.
They
aren't any of those weak Sierra Nevada bottles that you get that are defective and stuff and have to be recalled.
Oh.
Be careful if you're a Sierra drinker out there, folks. There is a recall on the shelves for Sierra Nevada.
Such a popular
for
brand.
certain batches. Well, and hey, glass doesn't get poured the same way all the time. Apparently, they had some that crumbled whenever you opened them, or could shatter and get you a little bit of glass inside your beer. It's prone to happen. But Steve-O brought some infamous brewing Sex Appeal, which is an American Hefeweizen right out of Austin, Texas.
You know what caught my attention? The sex appeal.
We got to, I know.
Yeah.
I know you, Steve-O.
Yeah.
So does that have
That's it, that's a
oranges in
winner.
it?
Yeah,
Appeal.
exactly. Yeah, it's very
And then
punnily
orange cute.
spelled
That's
with the
cute.
with the yeah.
Well, that's what the ladies
So-
usually tell me. I got sex appeal, so I say,
think
that must be my
With the
beer.
2 E's.
Yeah, exactly. The punny peel action at the end. So I think that should probably be our next try after the IPA.
Show thing, yeah.
But getting into the topic for the night, it's really interesting to me. Right at a year ago, as a matter of fact, we actually had our 25th episode. And our 25th episode, I've got a little clip here, was actually about government declassification.
Right.
And we talked about how they had just assembled the Doomsday Squad at NASA to go over situations of, asteroid impact, things like that, things that could bring about the end of humanity as we know it. And as we got into that a little bit later in the episode, we started talking about how long would it be until full disclosure comes about. So let's take a listen to that clip real quick, and we can kind of get a grasp of where we were a year ago and where we are now.
Wow.
Yesterday, NASA came out and actually from the Planetary Defense Coordination Office put this out, saying that it will draw up emergency response plans after a series of near misses, and that they are actually creating an apocalypse task force for impacts from outer space.
Right. Task force.
A task force, number one, which
'Cause
means
they know
they're
what's gonna come in,
We
you
know
know?
how much information
Does it
task
have
forces
Bruce Willis
gather.
in that lineup?
You know,
Yes.
well, that would be Armageddon.
And James Bond. Yeah, right.
But yeah, it was absolutely amazing to me that they would come right out and say that, and that there's been disclosure on the behalf of many world governments over the last many years.
Right.
We're really the only one, like we talked about in that episode with you and I, Stephen. We're really the only holdout right now. That is really holding on to their UFO case files, their information. Russia has disclosed.
And I wonder why.
Yeah. And there we were, literally, that episode released, I want to say January 25th.
Jeez, almost a year to the day.
Right at a year to the day. Here we are literally talking about a white paper that has come out from the NSA here in the last week. And I posted it to the Dudes and Beer Facebook group. Feel free to go cross-check it there. The article there was actually from SETI.org.
Well, the government gave clearance to release that in 2011.
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
And
absolutely.
it just after a lawsuit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's just it. It's all come out through FOIA, through the Freedom of Information
Stephen Greer
Act.
was on that lawsuit.
There were numerous people on the lawsuit, and they've quoted numerous things regarding the lawsuit. But this came out as part of just a stack of thousands of papers that were declassified by the NSA. And basically what they said was that at one point they actually paid this cryptographer to decode and come up with an equation to be able to decode these messages that were obviously in a repeating form that came from extraterrestrial origin. And there were 29 of them. They have not declassified what those messages were, what was in those messages.
Well, from what I understood, they haven't fully decrypted them. They have pieces of it, they know
Yeah, right.
small words that connect sentences. I mean, I would imagine it's pretty and there were equations
Yeah,
on
and
there
the
that-
equations on there are
I'm sure they were
just,
sick, but
Oh, they're
they
out
mean
of-
nothing to anyone but the top physicists.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
right, yeah.
Exactly. And it's,
And once they looked at them, they're probably not going to
Yeah.
tell anybody. Oh,
Well,
you know,
it's-
I know, can't figure it out.
It's
you know?
the same as figuring out the math for the Enigma machine or something like that. Like you truly do with this kind of science and with this kind of technology have to be head of your field, top of your
Well,
class.
it was Dr. Howard Campagne.
Yeah.
He was in World War II. He
Yeah.
was a
Yeah,
cryptologist.
Absolutely, he
yeah,
was.
I read that.
So I'm sure he was working on figuring out the Enigma.
Exactly. He was part of the decoding efforts here in the United States
He is the
and
cream of the
stuff
crop.
like that.
Yeah, I read
he
that
was,
myself.
He was absolutely high up there, and it's interesting that you brought that up because there is factual basis. I was reading like a good 30-page interview with him today, just to see if there was anything about this referenced in the interview. And it's not a PDF that I shared with y'all, but I do have the link at home, and I'll share it with you because it was a great.
I feel like
great interview.
they know more about what's in there, and that it wasn't. I mean,
Yeah.
Sitchin and those guys basically decrypted the whole,
yeah.
Babylonian
the language,
text.
Sumerian text
and it was
hieroglyphs.
It was beyond that. It was what they're calling Anunnaki.
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, if
Well,
you've seen this, it's
Well, and hey,
triangles and dashes.
and there has been what's interesting is that the Anunnaki and the Babylonian texts actually talk about Nibiru, about the other
Yeah,
planet of
Planet
the solar
X.
system,
Yeah.
Planet X, and well, that has been proven to exist, and it is
Well,
existing
it's
in
on,
an
it's
odd,
on our radar.
yeah, and it's on an odd orbit, just like described.
Well, just like it was described
Yeah, where
in
it's
the
on like
Mesopotamian
every
text.
30,000 years or so, it makes a pass by. So interesting.
Is
that
that
has
like
been
a rogue
confirmed.
planet? Would that
No,
be considered
it's
a rogue
the
planet?
12th planet.
Oh, it
It's the
is.
12th planet.
But
It's-
it has an orbit and it's orbiting and all
Sun's here.
whatnot.
yeah.
Ah,
instead
okay.
of instead
Yeah.
of
Crazy, it just sweeps
The-
around the sun and shoots
yeah.
back out way
The-
beyond Pluto.
the planets,
shit.
the planets themselves actually orbit the sun on what's called the ecliptic plane, and they all orbit basically
Somewhat circular,
Yeah,
somewhat,
Well,
yeah.
they're kind of elongated because of the throw
Right.
of gravity,
Right.
And the throw of gravity.
but compared to
but-
this, they're
But they're all basically on the same plane. That's why it's
Yeah.
called the ecliptic plane. They're all
Right.
basically rotating at the same pitch to the sun. Whereas this planet and Pluto even goes a little bit outward. Neptune is a little bit odd, but this one is like way out of whack, like
Way
what
out
a
of whack.
comet would be.
Ah.
And comes
it actually
in.
passes the sun. It sweeps
Yeah.
around the sun and then shoots back out.
Yeah, it's wild. It's wild. And it's interesting that you bring that up because that is something that has been known about for a long time. Has been theorized.
10,000 years.
Theorized for a long time. They didn't know if the texts were real.
Right.
And
Well, I mean,
now,
if I've read a lot.
Oh
a lot
yeah,
of
no,
Sitchin
and
stuff,
that's why I
the
wanted you to
stuff
come
that-
in on this
yeah,
episode because
the stuff
you're,
they
you're
talk
like
about
me.
that
You're-
in the Sitchin books about what's in the text. There's no way anybody 10,000
back
years
in-
ago
yeah.
could know there were
Yeah.
how many planets there were, what the exact distances there were, what kind of science they had. That was
Right.
said they did cataract surgery, they did open heart surgery, they did crazy insane
did.
things.
Yeah.
They had
well, and same thing with
DNA
the Mayans.
crossbreeding, and I mean,
Same thing with the Mayans.
right.
You know,
well,
I
it
mean,
would
they-
make sense.
they
that
have
if somebody
evidence
visited,
of-
they
Yeah,
did
they
it around
have-
the world.
Yeah,
you know,
they have evidence of brain surgery and stuff
Yeah.
like
The
that.
Baghdad batteries.
And,
right
the
before they
bag-
sacrificed.
Yeah, and yeah,
But-
and well, you got to make sure that they're right in the head before you
yeah.
give them up to the
That's
gods.
right.
Can't give the gods
give
some,
'em up, dude.
some crazy person. Come on, gods don't want a crazy person. So, yeah, it was interesting to me that this came because right after that episode was right when the CIA put out a data dump. And I was in Vegas during that episode, but the CIA had put out a data dump saying that, like, a good 60% of their cases were unsolved. That they were actual X-Files. They don't know. They cannot explain them. And
Or
there was,
are not willing
and there
to-
was
to explain them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and,
It's-
and that's just it.
I start to
like-
see some of their files and papers they put out, it'll say like allegedly or supposedly,
and in
words
those
like that.
In those episodes, I actually refer to the fact that I firmly believe that within the next 1 to 3 years, we will start seeing declassification happen. We will start seeing this stuff, and we're full on seeing it right here. Like there were numerous
that's
news
starting to
lines
realize
that picked it up.
Americans are not just that we have the internet.
Yeah.
Everybody can look up what every other country is saying and the sightings and military bases where there's 20 ships floating over the tarmac for 2 days straight.
Right, Patterson.
We see this stuff.
Yeah.
You're kind of looking shady if you don't admit to something because everybody else is.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Former presidents and everything else.
But the fact that they
Eisenhower.
actually released a white paper saying that there were 29 repetitive messages, that these messages were in a string and then repeated. Back to back.
Just like on all our alien contact. Where we
that would
send
be
it
like
out
a
over
signal
and over
we
again.
throw out, repetitive, right?
Exactly, and it's the same thing that we do, and that's we have repetitive signals. We have repetitive, like I was saying earlier before the show, Stephen, the one that Russia got, the new WOW signal that happened a few months ago. They've located that down.
Well, that's who received the messages we're talking about. It was Sputnik.
Oh, that's true.
That received the messages.
Yeah.
True.
Well, what I'm referring to is the new WOW signal that just recently happened in the last few months.
that
Russian scientists
very
received.
little about it.
And they were trying to pinpoint it. And they've actually found that it was like a rotating quasar way out there, and they've actually located the source of the signal. But it was something that as signals were sweeping, they found a repetitive signal that was there that was foreign that they had never seen before.
Right.
So it just took that long for that.
It takes a while.
It takes a few million years for that shit
And it's
to
like
get
that sweeping is kind of what catches scientists' attention. I
Well,
would say, right?
the repetitive part of it is
repetitive.
what catches their attention. I mean, you're going to catch the sound of planets, you're going to catch the sound of all kinds of things, but it's the repetitive part of it. Much like we were saying in the episode about androids, where it's a ones and zeros.
Yeah, I know.
And it's a binary code. It's very much a basic form of mathematical communication.
Right.
Almost like SOS. Whenever you think about it, and it's the fact of what they've said is that there were 29 independent messages that were separated by what we would know in equations as parentheses.
Right.
So it was like 29 different equations that were sent out, and that's what they're decoding.
Very interesting.
So it was wild, and it was really interesting to see them actually put that out there.
Right.
And I'm with you, Stone, and I know Steve is as well. I firmly believe the fact that there is more information out there than what they give. The trickles of information that we get, in and of itself, prove to me the fact, as a news person, that there is more information there.
Yeah, I mean...
Go ahead.
Well, last time I was on, we were talking about the androids and AI and all. I talked to you about Sprint working in the phone industry and what kind of crazy, insane technology they have. And I can tell you, like I told you then, humans aren't that smart.
Nah.
I mean, we have a handful of very intelligent people that are probably infantile compared to, some other civilization that's on the planet's been around longer.
Yeah.
I mean, we came too far too fast for it to be on our own. And
it's literally, you do have to. My brother Randy and I were recently talking about it in the episode. Is it right for us to play God in the modern scientific realm? Stephen Hawking has said for years, if aliens do exist, do we really want to be hailing them?
I tell people all the time.
Because
they're friendly.
Anybody that could make it beyond the stars and be able to make it here like that,
your cattle
has technology far beyond you.
Primates.
And you better hope that it's a Mars attacks type situation
where they're smaller than we are.
And you
can turn on a radio and blow their heads up.
And that some not unusual by Tom Jones will take care of the situation. You know, exactly.
Great.
You know,
And he's holding the box. What is it? I'm your friend. I'm your friend, or something.
that's my favorite. Is their translator?
Yeah, translator.
We are not here to harm you. We are your friends.
As they're zapping you.
As they're just mowing people down with a.
Well, I mean, to go back to Sitch and
Yeah.
Sumerian texts. I mean, we were according to the text, which I tend to lean more towards that belief system.
Sure.
We were created to be a slave race to mine
Gold.
resources,
That's what I believe
heavy metals
too.
for
Yeah.
them, and that's
Yeah.
all we
Yeah.
were worth.
Yeah.
You know, there was a handful of them that thought we were pretty cool.
Yeah.
The rest of them, that's when the Great Flood came, and they knew it was coming, and
was,
they all said, let's just
reality.
leave. We'll
Yeah.
come back when the waters go down. Don't tell them.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't tell him.
And then Inky takes Noah, and he
Yeah,
says,
yeah.
hey, bro,
man,
you
yeah.
got to, like, build something and float.
And the way time and space works, you know, they might be gone just for a short time
Well,
and return
it's-
to us. It's been a long time.
It's well,
You know,
the
they
way
might
the
come
way
back
it
and
works,
it's like, yeah,
the
it
way
was
it
yesterday.
works when you fly at the speed of light.
Yeah.
So you leave this spot for 24 hours, flying at the speed of light. You arrive back at this spot 24 hours later on your watch.
Yeah.
It's been 1,000 years,
That's
Right. Yeah.
which is also
Well,
in the
24. Yeah.
it's also in the
True
Bible
that,
because
yeah.
it says a day to man, 1,000 years to man is but a day to God.
Dang. Yeah.
Which is the formula for space
Speed of
travel.
light.
Speed of light.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And
It's crazy.
Very interesting correlations on that.
Yeah. Well, and you know, it's interesting to me the
Not to go all Mike Pence and bring the Bible into this.
No, absolutely not. Because I mean, like we were saying, this is knowledge that has been known before.
Well, it's in all the books. It's in the Mahabharata. It's in you know, the Bible. You know, there's alien
And the same
spacecraft
stories
in
of like
Bible.
the Great Flood and everything.
It's just
has
how
been
you
said
how
even
you read
before
it.
the Bible.
Are you
Yeah.
going to read it from the standpoint of somebody that lives in 2017 and has a cell phone that can look
Right.
up any piece of information they want in
Right.
20 seconds? Or are you going to look at it like Moses would
Right.
when they were walking around in sandals, you know, not necessarily cooking their meat right? And
Well, when it was
Yeah.
when
They
it
had no
was a
clue.
when it was a pillar of smoke by day, a pillar of fire by night, leading them for 40 days and 40 nights through the desert. You know,
See, that's what I think about the people today. Is especially the young ones. They come into this world, and it all revolves around their life today, and from what they remember, they're born to now, and they're living their everyday life. But they don't research history or go back enough to say and question things like, "Wait a minute," like, dude. This
they're
is,
not taught history.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
had a kid when I was last Super Bowl when I was headed out to San Francisco. I rode in the car with this kid, and we had a lot of time to talk.
yeah,
And we started talking about the Holocaust, and he was telling, "Oh, that wasn't real."
Oh my, yeah.
He said they don't have any pictures of like women and little kids and stuff in those camps. It's all like prisoners of war. I'm like, have you ever even just looked on the internet for the pictures?
Yeah.
And I
they're
started
everywhere.
showing him. I'm like,
Yeah.
and he
The
got the
infam-
saddest look on his face. And
the
like,
infamous picture of the soldier opening the barbed wire for the kid to go
it was
through.
just a
Yeah,
matter of like,
right.
I've never seen any pictures because I didn't look,
Yeah.
but I've never seen it, so it wasn't real. It was just prisoner of war camps.
yeah.
I'm like,
No.
come on, I mean,
Well, and
what did they teach you in school? They don't teach anything.
yeah.
Ridiculous.
No, they don't.
And we'd like to say a quick shout out to Handsome Dave. Handsome Dave, I
up,
would like
Handsome
to agree
Dave?
with you. O'Doul's is some good stuff. I don't know about the FEMA camps and body bags.
Yeah, they got
myself,
some O'Doul's
but,
over there.
the Russians did learn how to
give me
make
some.
vodka from the aliens. That is true.
And beer.
It became the national
the
drink
Egyptians
shortly.
like that.
It became the national drink shortly after Tunguska.
Ooh, okay.
Well, the Egyptians were the first ones to have beer,
Yeah.
and
That's
they
true.
were just rot full of aliens.
As a matter of
That's
fact,
Giza and everything
as a
else.
matter of fact,
That's a damn straight
It
truth.
is a fact that as a slave in Egypt, you were allowed a ration of beer per day.
Mm-hmm.
That was
Boxer
part
rebellion,
of
keep
that.
them-
Was,
I bet you
that
that was
was
the
part of your
highlight
pay
of their
and
down,
day.
you
That
know?
was part of your pay and
That
food.
was their
was the
to go home and
You know?
drink that beer.
absolutely.
You know?
Well,
I
hey,
bet it tasted like crap. No bubbles.
No,
I know.
refrigerator.
Oh no,
Well, it
no
was-
bubbles, no refrigerator.
it was really
That
more
kills it
along the
right
lines
there.
of like mead or something
I
like
guess
that.
when you've been drinking
you
it that way so long, you get accustomed to it or whatnot.
Yeah, I'm
It's
sure.
like,
In like Europe, in their
Yeah.
warm beer.
Yeah,
But I definitely couldn't imagine that.
yeah.
Warm beer.
Speaking,
I
speaking of
wouldn't
beer,
want
let's grab one of those shiners out of there real quick, and let's give that a shot real quick.
Give that shiner a shot, man.
We'll see if they've calmed down enough after their
Let's
quick
see if
voyage.
the little aliens like this shiner.
But I'd like to try this this shiner actually.
It's actually surprisingly
Ooh, that smells
not
delicious.
as coffee as I thought it would
Yeah,
be. It's
yeah.
kind of nice. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, you
After
know,
a while, you just kind of taste the beer, and it just
Yeah.
Nice.
tastes
And
like
it does
that.
it really have coffee in it?
Yeah, it's
does it?
Yeah.
Oh, it does?
it has.
oh my God, that is delicious.
Is it not?
Oh, Chris
I
is
love
a
cold
buyer.
brew. I love cold brew
Chris
beer,
loves it.
coffee. So.
I like cold brew coffee. It's stronger than most.
Mikey likes it.
They actually partnered up with Chameleon Cold Brew.
Okay, that makes
and,
perfect sense. They're local.
Yeah.
so-
Hello. That's pretty good.
Yeah, no, and I mean you have
Wow.
to remember that most stouts are brewed with coffee and
Right,
stuff like
right.
that.
Oh, really?
So you know,
And they're all lighter
Guinness,
than
Guinness,
you
all
would
that
think,
kind of
yeah.
stuff. But this
It's
is
actually a much lighter beer.
last
than
coffee I
thought.
had
Yeah,
was
this is
bad,
this
but
is
this is
really
good.
enjoyable and has like a really nutty flavor to it. It's good. It's much
Those
more
coffee nuts.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
much more like a well, it's much more like
Handsome
a
Dave.
It's much more like a nut ale than a stout.
That's tasty.
You know, it's
Well, I
good
don't
stuff.
think it was supposed to be considered a.
Like the coffee part's not overwhelming.
No, it's definitely an ale.
I get what you're saying. Yeah.
But I mean, most
I'm an
things
ale
that
guy.
you're brewing with, yeah. Well, I mean, you know,
Because
just
it
yeah,
I don't know
it,
too
it
much.
cures what ails me.
it kicks you in the booty. It kicks you, yeah.
No.
It's the cure
Herman
for
Foster.
wellness.
That's
You know?
yeah,
That's
yeah,
a new
it's
movie
good
out.
stuff.
I made a
It's good
pun.
stuff. Yeah, I enjoyed that. That is
Yeah.
really nice.
It is.
For a coffee brewed
Pleasant,
one.
So
I enjoy it.
I'm interested in the fact of have you gentlemen ever had an extraterrestrial experience yourself? Stone?
I absolutely have not, and I got to be honest. As much as I have researched over the past 35 years, literally, and I'm not like a researcher, you know, just like an interested guy who keeps buying books
Sure.
and reading, you know. I know a few people who have told me, oh, I totally, and I gotta say, I think they're idiots. I really, like, I'd look at them and I'm like, no, you didn't. You're stupid. You're lying. And so it's
Okay.
you know,
Well,
it's
yeah,
like
no,
this
'cause-
inner thing. I'm like, no, you didn't.
That's why I
They're
love
way
you, because-
smarter than you. They're not going to just pop up in your neighborhood.
Yeah.
You didn't. You're lying. There's so many people that'll, you know, and to be honest, the people who have said it are those people who you're going to roll your eyes at anyway. Pretty
Yeah.
much 90% of what they say
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
bullshit, and they just want
Yeah.
to be part of the conversation, and you know. But yeah, I've never had anybody I consider an half-ass intelligent person, you know, and level-headed person tell
Yeah.
me they actually. I've heard reports, you know, Jimmy Carter,
Sure.
all these,
Right.
all these people, you
Yeah.
know,
Sure.
Buzz Aldrin, all these people, but,
Yeah.
and I'm not thinking they're idiots.
Canada ministry dude or whatever it is.
Yeah, yeah. As far as there's
Yeah.
tons
Yeah.
of pilots, you know,
Absolutely.
everybody else, you know, but all of Mexico City.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
You know,
hell yeah.
It was 7 days. They had
Yeah.
an armada
A wave.
flying over the
Yeah,
city
like the armada.
midday. Like, oh, not on American news.
No.
Hmm.
Yeah.
We're not gonna.
The only country that wouldn't air it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's where I don't know.
Okay.
I like that one in Jerusalem.
I feel kind of shitty saying I think they're idiots if
How
they
about
say
you,
they've
Chris?
seen it.
Not really, though. I mean, because you know, you're
But
like
it wasn't
me.
like I was out in the mountains in Montana.
Yeah.
And I saw what might have been something. They're always like, I was in my neighborhood in North Austin. And,
Yeah.
you know, I saw an alien walking down the road. No, you didn't.
Well, and see,
No, you
yeah,
didn't.
yeah, yeah.
No, come on.
Yeah,
yeah.
You know, and you know, I will say this: I've seen some interesting things, observing stars and stuff
Right,
like
right.
that. I've seen a zigzag before.
right.
One, can't actually
But see,
confirm that.
that's different. You know,
Yeah.
you said you saw a zigzag.
Right.
You're not saying you saw the color of his eyes.
No.
Right, yeah,
no,
yeah.
You didn't see him try and rob your neighbor's house.
Yeah.
No.
So we don't know
But
military UFOs.
I have, and I will say UFO
Where
as,
you
as
weren't
the,
high
as the
at the
truest
time
term.
now, right?
Man, you mean I mean,
Okay, well,
UFO to us.
you know me. You
there's
know me. It's
always
Thomas
a
the
scientific
Next.
explanation for
I'm
everything. You know?
I'm out fishing. Yeah, but I'm also. I'm not going to say a trained observer, but I know
not
what an
the fish.
airplane looks
I only
like.
had 8 caps,
I know what
mushroom caps.
I know,
Not
yeah.
nearly
I
enough
had
to see
8.
aliens.
Yeah.
With the nice purple vein.
There was a shared experience that I had with people
Okay.
where we were on truly altering substances like that. We were on some dose and for New Year, and we all had the shared experience of seeing an amorphous shape in the sky. Amorphous.
Right.
Literally, it was moving
with
and
no
going.
sound.
No sound, nothing
Right.
like that.
Yep.
We don't know what and that's why I say UFO, because in the truest term, it was in an identity. It was in the air. It was flying. We have no idea what the fuck it was.
flying to be a UFO.
Yeah, we have no idea what it was. It wasn't some
Oh, it
bright
doesn't
object. It wasn't. It wasn't an orb. It
Yeah.
wasn't anything like that. And even at that point, to even go a step further, the next year, the neighbor who lived next door to our friend, who we typically spent New Year's Eve at, because it was somewhere that we could like go over the hill and pop fireworks, shit like that. And the neighbor who lived next to him,
What did he do?
well, he was an autistic kid, and he remembered everything.
Right, of course.
Ari would literally. Ari literally like had the phone numbers to every high school
That's
in the
fairly
west side
common,
of
yeah.
Houston, like
fairly
in
In
his
his-
head, and would like call them at lunch, like call
Nice.
call the phones at Memorial City Mall and talk to people that picked up, stuff like that. And he was frequently seen riding around with the cone on his head, things like that.
Right.
He was an interesting cat of very special needs, but the fact was Ari forgot nothing.
I like that.
Ari forgot
I
nothing.
like that.
And the next year at New Year's, literally was like, y'all remember that thing that we saw in the sky? And it was like, oh, shizzle. We may have been in a jacked up state of consciousness, but Ari remembered that.
Ooh. And
Ari remembered
and he
seeing that.
remembered that shit.
And that was one of those like, oh wow, I don't know what that was. I have no idea. It literally, I mean, for all I know, it could have been a really big.
What did ours describe it as?
It was just a big shape in the sky that was moving around.
Yeah.
I mean, it literally just looked like this amoeba. For all I know, it could have been like a trash bag that was blown into the air.
Oh, yeah, I see.
And your depth perception.
Yeah,
was off.
exactly.
You didn't know it was really
Who
10
knows?
feet
Yeah,
away.
that's
Who
depth
knows?
perception's
Yeah, exactly.
huge, yeah.
It's freaking 2 in the
That
morning.
fucks me up, the depth
It's
You know.
just unidentified.
Yeah, it's 2 in the
And
morning,
flying.
and you've got nothing but street light competing with darkness beyond you.
And
so-
Ari saw that shit.
But Ari saw it, and Ari remembered it, and it was one of those things that was like, "Ooh,
Now,
that's interesting."
okay, I did see something,
Okay.
but it wasn't flying. I was in Kansas, and I worked for Dish Network at the time, which back then was country cable.
Okay.
You couldn't get, that's what they call it, because you couldn't get cable out in the country. You get, a satellite dish. So I'm always way out in the country in Kansas, which is pretty much way out from anything.
Well,
in Kansas,
just
there's
about
not
anywhere.
much there.
Yeah. No.
You know?
Yeah.
And there was I was in a small town, I forget which one, Ford or something like that, way out in southwestern Kansas. And there was a semi with, there was some cops in front and back, and they were driving through town.
Really?
Kind of blocked off the roads a little bit, kind of cleared the way. And on the back was a big tarp covered thing that was pointy at one end and rounded at the other end, and it was big, and it was the word was, and it looked, I didn't doubt it when I
Big teardrop.
because I was like, what the hell
like
is
a big
going on
teardrop.
here? Yeah, what the hell is this thing that they're, and it wasn't cops in front and back, it was like Humvees
Yeah.
with like 50 cals on them. It was I remember it was very, because it made me
Yeah,
like,
that's-
what the hell, what
that's
the hell
major,
are you
dude.
transporting? You know?
Yeah. That's.
And I looked it up, and apparently there was these sightings all through Kansas.
No
of
fucking
this,
way.
As they were, but they weren't taking the highway.
Yeah.
They were taking these super
Back
back
roads.
country roads
Yeah.
all the way across Kansas to transport this thing. And there was all kinds of speculation about it. What
Yeah.
it was, you know,
Trying to keep
that
out of
they,
major
you know,
cities and
they-
towns.
Something
Wow.
crashed or
Well,
something, and
well-
you got to get it somewhere somehow.
Yeah.
Well, and you
I would have
also-
thought they would have had a enclosed truck, but this thing wouldn't fit. It barely fit on a regular semi trailer. Like
Yeah.
it was hanging off the edges. It was pretty
Really?
big.
Oh.
So
Yeah.
that's
That
about
is-
as close as I've come to.
That is
I don't know what
sick,
it
dude.
was. It could have
Yeah.
been some crazy new generator. You know,
Well, yeah,
I don't
exactly,
know.
exactly, and
But
that's
it did
just
make me scratch my head. Mm-hmm. So
Yeah, and that's those are the things that you have to kind of wonder about, you know, because like I said, I openly have been getting ready to have a kid. I probably shouldn't say it, but I openly invite the alien experience. I openly invite the concept of, you know, contact.
Well, you know me, I'm all for against our governments and all for the extinction of humankind. I think it'd be the best thing that ever happened to this planet. I said that before. I'll
Yeah.
say it again.
Yeah.
And I think the aliens coming down here and wrecking our freaking city.
Might be
You know,
one of the
I would
best
have
things that's
no
happened.
criminal background anymore.
Yeah.
If the government was just knocked out of place, like, well, I'm a good guy again, you know?
Yeah, right.
I can get any job
You are
I
a
want.
good guy. You are a good guy.
Same here.
You know, to me, I don't know. Having had those experiences, having had the experiences with the supernatural that I've had, I guess I have a different point of view. I look at it.
But would it not creep you out? Like, I don't know that I want to see some shit like that. I want to see pretty much the
would
things
creep
I've
me
seen.
out.
I think it would be better for guys like us to see it, and maybe that's why they don't appear to us. Is because we know too much, or I don't know.
I mean, I'll be honest. I don't even look in the toilet when I'm done. I just flush it. I'm not going to get up and even look at it.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I want to see some slimy, big-eyed, gross lizard person.
Yeah.
That's gonna, you know, you can't unsee something.
Poltergeist.
You know,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know that I want to see that shit.
That's true.
I'd like to know that everything I know is absolutely true. Everything I studied is true. My beliefs are true.
Yeah.
That's about as far as I want to go.
Yeah.
You know, you come down, hit me with a big beam, my whole neighborhood, take us out because I don't want to. I don't want to live under your rule.
Travis Walton or
I
something.
don't
Yeah.
want to find out what kind of
Well,
evil
and-
intentions you have.
You know, like Travis Walton is an interesting case because that's one of those that like they based the movie Fire in the Sky
Sure
about
did.
it. I watch that movie once a year. I love that movie.
It's a
I've
beautiful-
loved
I love
it
it.
since it was in the theater. And
Sure is a good move.
well, it's a great movie, but it's also based, as far as they can tell, on fact. He's one of the only people that has passed like every polygraph and test
Yeah.
that's ever been given.
Many
to
a
him.
polygraphs. Not
But
just
did they
one.
give
Yeah.
Roddenberry a polygraph?
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, gee.
Because I think he's got
Yeah?
some connections.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh,
He
no.
knew a little too much, a little
Yeah.
too far
Yeah.
ahead.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and
There was
you know,
some-
There were some seances and
Well,
stuff
he
that
did.
he
Well,
was into.
just even his show. You know, I mean, just Star Trek, like the
Yeah.
things that were on there. It's like you just came up with all this stuff that's going to be out, and
well,
you know,
And now it's
well,
like-
I wouldn't
now it's like,
necessarily.
we got it?
I wouldn't necessarily go that
no,
far.
we have things more advanced. Than
Yeah,
that,
oh
now,
yeah.
you know.
Oh no, most
But
definitely.
when we
The
first
guys-
had the flip, you know?
Yeah.
the guys that made the flip phone straight out
No, I'm sure.
admitted.
I mean, come on, they're nerds.
They
Of course
admitted
did,
the fact
you
that
know?
they designed it after the communicator.
Of course they did.
But if you go through and actually read one of the first points of disclosure that was ever made to the American public, and I've got it here on PDF. If you've got a thumb drive or an Android, I can gladly give it to you before you leave. But it's the Brookings Report. And it came out shortly after Sputnik. Mm-hmm. And we talked about it in episode 25. We talked about it
To be
in
clear,
episode
shortly
27.
after Sputnik received the messages,
Well, shortly after
or after they
Sputnik was launched.
it. Okay, that's what I was trying to get at.
Because it was one of those like, hey, wait a minute, they just launched something into Earth orbit. We got to know what the implications are of this. So the Brookings Institute is one of the many think tanks funded by the federal government. And, you know, they're the ones that, you know, did the report showing the fact that cow flatulence affects radar.
Right.
You know,
with
stuff
the
like
methane
that.
gas, yeah.
They're the ones that do the report every few years on how many insect parts are in condiments, that kind of shit. But they were commissioned to do this report on the impacts of space exploration. The impacts of not just space exploration, but what it would be to be in space. And what the implications would be for mankind and what the possibilities would be. Some of the things that they mentioned were possibilities of weather modification via satellite through radio wave. They also mentioned telecommunication, being able to transmit video,
like harp
stuff
shit.
like this. And granted, you got to remember, Sputnik was really before like television, shit
True
like that.
Yeah.
So they were talking about like worldwide transmission. I mean, you had localized broadcast, but you didn't have worldwide broadcast yet. And they were talking worldwide broadcast of television signal, worldwide broadcast of radio.
And all the skeptics probably
Yeah.
turn their
And,
nose up and
one of the things-
You're
One of the things
crazy,
that was
crazy.
tackled with the Brookings report was what would be done if we were to make contact.
Wasn't it complete anarchy? I think I read about
Yeah.
that years ago.
Oh, no.
They
Mass
had asked
hysteria.
like they just asked
Could
the
they
Americans
ask?
like what do you think would happen if aliens landed today?
Right.
Complete freaking anarchy. So
Yeah.
Well-
and therefore you don't tell the American
They
public.
Right.
based
Shit.
it, what they
Right.
based their study
too many
on.
guns.
What they based their study on was history, and every civilization through the history of man that came upon a technologically advanced, a more technologically advanced civilization than them,
Right.
and what happened. You're either assimilated or you're destroyed.
Right.
One of the two. And for this knowledge to get out to the general public would, as you said, cause mass panic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would cause mass panic.
Critical
Well,
mass.
in
So,
America, number one in
if
civilian-owned weapons.
Their
guns. So you
recommendation,
don't-
their
Let's
recommendation
make it
was,
ugly.
should this contact ever be made, it should be kept under the closest guard. That nobody should know about it, because just the knowledge of that civilization that's greater than ours could collapse our entire civilization.
I think that they were right. I don't think they're right now. I think we know enough
At the time,
now.
at the
That
time,
we're advanced enough now. You'd have a handful of kooks and rednecks.
at the
and
time,
that would,
at the
you know,
time, it would have
At the time, it would complete collapse. Like,
absolutely. With the technological advances that we have now, with the knowledge that we have now, with
I feel like if the millennials saw an alien, they would pull out their iPhones and start videoing them.
it would
and then
be
run.
dude. Quite honestly,
Right.
quite honestly, I think it would straight up be a V situation.
Yeah.
It would be just like V was.
I think that's
in the
how it
80s.
will happen. Yeah.
It would, like you said, it would be accepted by these people. It would be okay, and it would be commonplace, and it would be accepting of the visitor.
Okay, so-
without the concept of what's going to happen.
So
Exactly.
Go ahead.
I want to say this without sounding offensive. But
We have a disclaimer. Feel free to be offensive.
So
bro.
say the Islamophobia that's going on.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so
No different
we don't
technically.
know, and there are dangers.
Yeah.
Sure.
Not all people of Islam are
Nope.
scary and everything else, but there are dangers
Sure.
and risks and definite threats. So you have every millennial stating, no matter what, no matter how dangerous it could be,
Yeah.
oh, stop. That doesn't happen.
You're right.
Oh, you have to be accepting. You have to accept this. You know?
Interesting.
So what happens, especially with millennials, oh, you're being racist.
Yeah. Politically
You're
correct.
being, they're not bad.
Well,
You're being racist. I mean, I can hear them. It's
Yeah,
in
yeah,
my
yeah,
head
yeah,
right
yeah.
now.
It's
And you're
something
like,
to
oh my
work
God, the aliens are here, and,
Yeah.
and Jesus Christ, they have these lasers, and they go, rah, 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 you know, and they're fucking little and scary looking and have big heads. And,
attack.
oh, you're being racist. Stop.
stop it.
Stop it. That's
Stop
just
it.
wrong.
That's, yeah, and I could definitely.
So you see what
that
I'm
point-
saying,
I could
like-
definitely see that point of view coming about. The question is, how many people's paradigm would it shift? I mean, I would have to say that for me, it wouldn't be a huge paradigm shift.
Mm-hmm. Well, because
We're
you're too
proven
intelligent. So.
Because I already accept the fact that it's going to be there, just mathematically.
And probably that
it would hit
it's
hardest
going
to the people that don't.
A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away is a fucking fact.
Right.
It may not be the Star Wars saga, but I guarantee you it's a fucking fact.
Long time, far, far away, and all this.
Exactly.
But we're talking 3,500 years.
Yeah.
We're talking 3,500 years since the last visit. Because it's something like 3,600 year rotation of Nibiru around the
30,000.
No, it's 3,600 years. According to Sitchin, I didn't.
Okay, because I thought Sitchin was a 10,000 year rotation.
No, 3,600 years because 10,000 years ago they were here.
Yeah.
But they didn't leave then because the Great Flood was only supposed to be 3,600 years ago, and they were here during that, according to the writings.
Okay.
Okay, so 3,600 years to me and you. It's a long ass time. I'm 47. I'm tired as hell. It feels like forever. I'm done, you know? But... So I'm like 3,600 years. I'm like, man.
But to somebody that lives through time,
if you talk about how long the Earth's been here and everything else, I mean, according to Sitchin, they came here like 145,000 years ago was when they first got here.
Yeah.
For their mining and everything else.
Yeah.
Which is coincidentally when they guesstimate the age of some of those ancient mines in Africa happen to be around that age.
Yeah.
You know, which Christians will say maybe 5,000 years man's been on Earth. Scientists say
if you're going by the whole Hebrew calendar and all that kind of stuff, and Hebrew count,
and how long humans were here before Christ died.
Yeah, the 30,000 years with the atmosphere and everything else that allowed for a longer lifespan, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, they find human things that are older. When they uncovered
Well, right now, one of the big things is the fact that they may have uncovered a civilization down near Antarctica.
Oh yeah, I did see something.
Yeah,
about
that was my brother posted that to the Dudes and Beer group all of a few weeks ago.
Which would make sense. Well, okay, so according to the writings that Sitchin helped decrypt. The Great Flood was caused not by rain, but by the polar ice cap shifting and sliding off into the ocean.
Yeah.
So once the polar ice cap, there was no ice.
Well, and what people fail to understand is the actual science of the Earth. Mm-hmm. If you go through and look at magnetite formations and lava in Hawaii, you'll actually see that approximately every 10, 12,000 years or so is a polar shift.
Right.
Literally, the poles of the Earth flip.
Right.
So we're like, imagine a coin that you're spinning on a table. The only thing stopping that coin from continuing to spin is that flat table.
Right.
So by all physics, if it was free spinning, it would spin and then counter-rotate.
Yeah.
And that's basically what the Earth does, because we don't spin on axis. We actually wobble on axis by 38 degrees.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So
that constantly shifts.
That wobble itself will widen.
So
that causes a polar shift.
So does that maybe affect climate change?
Hugely.
Maybe Trump knows more.
I'd say a lot of people know more.
See, that's why he's like, you know what? Climate change has nothing to do with us. You just, I got some alien buddies. I'm a little too well connected.
I'm one of those
me and
people.
Putin, he's filled me in.
I will straight say we contribute to climate change.
But they did core drilling in on the
polar ice caps on Mars are melting. Does that mean that our electronic robots up there are changing the atmosphere?
Well, they've seen by doing
it's
the
a solar
core,
cycle.
By doing the core drilling, they can see through the layers of a tree. They can see.
Yeah.
The further you go down, it's so many years, and they see different chemicals and different. I mean, they can tell this happens every so many years.
Right.
It warms up, it cools off. That's why. I mean, Jesus Christ, did nobody go to school and learn? We have ice ages.
Yeah.
Well,
What happens when the ice age? Everything melts.
Exactly.
Was it what?
Yeah.
What were the dinosaurs driving? To make that polar ice cap melt. I mean, what kind of chemicals were they putting in the air? I mean, granted, yes, I'm sure a dinosaur could put out a shitload of methane, but probably worse than all our cars put together. But
well, you know, and that to me is a big part of it because you know, like I said, is there climate change going on? Yes. Climate change is also going on across the solar system. There is a solar cycle that's going on. And despite what we do, are we to the point...
What is the only constant in the universe? And what is the thing that humans fear the most? They're the same thing. You know this.
Time.
Change.
I was just about to say change.
The only constant in the universe. In the universe, not... in my neighborhood, not in my house.
I was about to say change.
Yeah.
But it's also the thing we fear the most is change.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you see where I was going with it.
Absolutely, and it's a cogent point to make because it is the point.
The one message that I thought was appealing out of the guy that decoded those messages, the two things I read was the doctor that had was mathematical equations and it was what was it, the periodic table?
The
messages are listed our entire periodic table.
Yeah.
Now that does not mean that it's not the same exact periodic table
that
on
we
every
have now.
planet
in
the universe.
Yeah.
Because
specific.
Heavy metals were created in supernova.
They're isotopic and everything else.
You're going to find gold and silver and lead and all these things throughout the universe.
That's right.
Because they were created through an explosion, not on this planet.
One of the interesting things that we've covered in the last year that came out shortly after episode 25 was the discovery of ununpentium.
Yes, 115.
Not unobtainium.
No, not unobtainium, as in Avatar by James Cameron, but ununpentium as in Bob Lazar from Area 51.
S4.
They actually stated, and Bob Lazar said for years that the UFOs ran on an element called ununpentium, element 115. At the time, it did not exist on the periodic table of elements.
That was crazy.
But in the last year, it has been shown to be a highly decaying, rapidly decaying isotope of uranium.
That was released 2013.
And
so I'm guessing they've started exploring that and the possibilities of the uses.
It's interesting that came out in the same year as disclosure and everything else. The things that we're talking about that happened to make the scientific news, that ununpentium actually made the periodic table of elements. And here's a dude who's been discredited by so many people saying
Galileo.
He was a whack job.
You know.
Yeah, he was a whack job that worked at Area 51. Whatever, his sources couldn't.
He was
be
a whack
sussed
job,
out.
but he was smart enough to get a job at Area 51.
Yeah. And
I love when they tried to discredit somebody that they had employed in their employment for 40, 50 years, and they trusted him with everything. And the second he says anything, he's a kook.
Yeah,
Since when? The second he retired, all of a sudden he became a kook.
Yeah.
Every history on him's wiped. Can't find anything on the dude.
No, he's a kook.
Yeah, he was quite obviously involved in some deep projects, things like that, because like you said, most of his history has been erased.
Then he took Lear. He took Lear out there to where they could see Area 51 now, where you can't go. Because it's restricted, but back then he was able to take him out there and say, okay, at this such and such time you're going to see certain things or something. This is when they're testing, and of course shit happened and they filmed it.
Yeah,
it's like he told me exactly when this shit was going to happen.
Yeah, it was pretty wild. But in the last year they have come out and said that this actual element exists. So to me, it's interesting that all these things come about and that they all line up. They're all there. They're all there in major news media, but just kind of glazed over. You know, like.
But I mean, but you're not surprised at all.
Okay, I'm
right?
not
I mean,
surprised at the same time. Yeah,
I'm not shocked when any new news comes out or the way they handle it or anything else. I mean, I've had my beliefs. Because I call them beliefs. I don't call it like, here's my theory or here's things I've read. These are my beliefs.
It's absolutely.
My mother's very religious, and I tell her, Mom, I have my beliefs, and you don't want to hear them, so let's not talk about yours.
Or what was remember the incident, the Phoenix Lights? Remember that?
Yeah, I drove into Phoenix the night of the Phoenix Lights, and it really disappoints me that I did not see them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was literally driving in for a friend of mine's wedding because I remember the day after we got there like crazy early in the morning.
There's a lot of hot air balloons out there.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. But I mean, to see the
I absolutely know nothing about what you're talking about.
Well,
so
the
like,
Phoenix Lights were a phenomenon that happened in the mid '90s.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of the first things that was really in America.
Swamp gases?
No,
Okay.
I know, right? I know, right?
They've called them military flares.
Like, we're in the desert.
They've called them military flares.
Weather balloons, military flares.
They said that it was a military exercise in flares, but what numerous people saw was a formation of lights literally moving in unison
across
over
the entire planet.
Arizona.
And so many saw this
50
huge
times
like
a year,
mothership was like
you
cruising
see
right
every
above
video.
them.
Yeah.
Like, I remember the next morning literally sitting in the Denny's
Really?
and
Holy
reading the fucking newspaper where there was the governor with the alien saying,
Yeah!
like, you know, like the governor did a guest spot with like an alien.
Yeah.
Like, you know, the aliens came and visited
He
last
did this
night.
like
Blah.
press conference deal, and it was like supposed to be serious, and he was like something about like we
a
found
bunch of
one
people
pulse,
saw some
and he had
lights
this guy dressed up like an alien walking, made a whole joke about it.
But now,
Made it
and
funny.
rightly so.
No, sure.
You're in a position. So an airline pilot, and thousands of them have seen things.
Oh, yeah.
And they're basically told, if you see something, don't say anything.
Don't say
Well,
you will
if
be
you-
blackballed. You will not be
Yep.
allowed to fly an airplane full of people anymore.
anymore. You will be done.
And rightly so.
Yeah.
Because we don't know, is he a freaking kook? Or did he really see something? I don't want 300 people flying all the way up there at those speeds, not knowing whether this guy is the kook or the guy who's telling the truth.
Well,
you
and
know?
hey, here's the thing. Whenever the report comes in, feel free to drug test him. Feel free to fucking alcohol test him. Stuff like that.
Right.
But for me, those are valuable reports because of the fact that they are trained observers.
right.
As it's called. They're trained observers. They're people who know what aircraft in the sky are capable of.
Right.
They're people
Well,
who
and I
know
wasn't-
the common
I get
paths
where you're-
of air
I
traffic.
get what you're saying, and I wasn't saying that you know. I'm saying he handled himself for self-preservation.
Yeah,
sure.
Absolutely correctly. Any government official that's like, oh my God, there was aliens above our city. Bam, you're gone.
Yeah, derail this
I
somehow.
mean, I don't know if impeachment have what it's called when you get rid of a mayor, but you're gone.
Make a joke of it.
Some 25th Amendment shit,
I'm with you. I'm with
you're
you.
out of here. I'm not saying that shit. I'm going to get up on there on the news just like he did. As much as I believe in, you know what I believe in, I'm going to say.
He actually was in an interview after that and recanted and said he wished he wouldn't have handled it the way he did.
He did.
He panicked. What the hell are you going to do? There goes my political career. If I admit that it really happened,
it was some crazy business. I remember.
that's the sad part of the whole thing is that the way it's set up. That you're a crazy drunken
Repercussions of
redneck
just reporting it.
kook.
Yeah.
If you say anything.
Yeah.
Then you can't talk about it.
Yeah.
Without I'm well versed in the subject. When I talk to people at work, you know how I.
Oh no,
my God, I never
that's
shut
one of
up
the
at work.
reasons you're here.
And because we got all this time to work, you know,
Yeah.
and I want to talk. You know, you bring something up. If I know anything about it, you're not going to shut me up. But I've gotten plenty of, and I'm not afraid of it. I don't give a shit if you think I'm crazy or not.
Whatever.
Because I'm better at my job than you are.
Mostly
and
millennials.
You'll be, yeah. They're all, okay, well, here it goes. Yes, they're all millennials. But I don't care. But I'm not going to lose my job. Mike and Scott are not going to let me go because I believe aliens created us and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
You know, they're not going to let me go. If I was a governor, a mayor, hell, if I
Totally
was a cop,
different story.
if I was anything, you know, government related, yeah, hell no.
Yeah, no, your
Screw
posts on
that.
Facebook would be totally different.
Oh yeah, hell yeah.
I saw
Absolutely.
this. I saw
I'm
this.
probably going to make fun of the people who
What
said
was-
they saw it.
What was the show with Leonard Nimoy that did? He did a show and he would narrate and stuff.
Beyond Belief.
Yeah, Beyond Belief. And then when he was with the Dugon
I believe
tribe,
it was Beyond Belief.
you know, it was like these guys celebrated when a star they couldn't even see. Every 64 years, and they would have this celebration. They were like, "Wait a minute! First of all, they can't even see the damn star."
With the sky people.
Yeah, and it was
And the
like,
rest of the world believed that the stars weren't even.
they went back and they were, you know, with the computers and stuff with this star, and every 64 years it makes an orbit. How the fuck did they know that?
Oh yeah, and it goes way.
No,
beyond
that's
what they
that.
knew.
And they talked about the star people coming down
Yes,
talking to him, and it's
hold
like,
on.
all over the world. Yeah.
it's like, wait a minute, these guys.
We're waiting on the system to bring it up here, but
Yeah, dude. It's insane.
that is the Dogon tribe
Dogon,
of Africa
Yep.
that you were talking about.
Sure
Yeah,
is.
yeah, Ogon tribe of South Sumatra. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's amazing how they know stuff. You
Yeah,
can't- I mean,
and see right here, the where it's talking about they believe themselves to be connected to the tribes
Yeah.
of Israel.
they would wear
stuff
these
like that.
masks that resembled
Yeah,
whatever that they saw,
Yeah.
and they would have this celebration.
Well, I recommend that anyone listening checks out any book by Zechariah Sitchin. He died last year.
He did.
Oh man, yeah.
he did.
I look at him as my prophet. But,
Yeah.
and not in a kooky way, but
Yeah.
just because of all his work. I recommend read The 12th Planet.
Yeah.
Read Wars of Gods and Men. Read any of his works, and you, even if you don't believe a word in the book, it's
Yeah.
an amazing read.
Yeah.
You know, it'll be better than any sci-fi movie you ever saw.
Oh, absolutely. No, the
it's
works of
just-
Zachariah Sitchin are absolutely,
You would just,
absolutely amazing.
yeah, it'll blow your mind. I mean, it's really
Or that
really
one stone of
intense.
hieroglyphs that they keep always going back and referring to, and it
Well,
has
it's the Rosetta Stone.
it's
the
got, you got
Rosetta,
the,
yeah. And I mean, the planets are exactly and everything, and it's like, okay, cool. They drew
Well,
this
well,
exactly.
that's not the Rosetta
Sumerian.
Stone.
No, this.
You know
and
which one I'm talking about, though?
yeah, I know what you're
Yeah.
talking about. With it
Yeah.
had a submarine, and they had a helicopter, and they've had
Yeah.
all these
And the planets
hieroglyphs.
exactly or something. or
But the Sumerians had it all, and they had flight plans. They had flight trajectories and all for because the three pyramids at Giza. When you're going to triangulate position for landing,
Yep.
you need 3 points.
That's right.
No.
And there's those 3 points, just like before they built the three pyramids, exactly where they needed to be for flights. That it was in the writings. It was Mount Ararat, the two mountains
Yep.
that were
Wow.
surrounding it, which were exactly the same sizes, apparently, or the same. They were set up the same, you know.
Yeah,
They were
in the same
were-
arrangement.
Yeah, same arrangement.
Yeah,
and
and
that's
they
what you
arranged-
need when
yeah.
you're going to
Right.
land anything. And they had these flight, exactly, just these diagrams. You're like, why? Say they were just great science fiction writers 10,000 years ago.
Yeah.
Why would you even write about that? And
Right.
why would you write about these them
Yeah.
landing
Right.
and these just everything about it?
In
It's
such
not like
detail.
yeah, it's
In
like,
such
and
detail.
it's not. Let's sacrifice a lamb
Yeah.
because the gods will be angry and all
The
this.
Egyptians
Nothing
also
like that at
had
all.
like a lot of the even in their hieroglyphs and stuff in stuff like appeared to have these elongated skulls, right?
Well,
You
the
know?
Egyptians weren't around apparently, according to the writings.
Yeah.
The Egyptians weren't even in Egypt.
Yeah.
Nobody lived
okay.
in Egypt
Yeah.
when the three pyramids of Giza were built because
Ah.
the Mesopotamians had trade routes that would pass through there.
Yeah.
And they recorded in their writings that those 3 pyramids, the only 3 pyramids in Egypt, because all the rest of them are really small and
Smaller.
man did build them. They could build
Try to
them. They're
replicate.
small little tombs, but they pass these all the time.
Yeah, the 3
no one
pyramids.
lived there.
The 3 pyramids of Egypt are not tombs.
No.
There,
No, they're
there
not.
has
There's nothing
never
tomb
been
about it,
There has
you
never been
know.
a relic. There has never.
There's no
been,
hieroglyphics
There's no
on the 3
hieroglyphics
pyramids.
to bring somebody to the next world. Nothing.
Nothing.
And it's
Very
actually been theorized that they're a generative power plant.
Power plant or some kind of signaling system for. I really recommend you read the books that I'm talking about because it goes into great depth about exactly the story why they were built, who was in charge out of the 13 brothers and sisters of Anu, his children, Enki and Enlil,
13.
2 leaders, the leader of the underworld, which was anything in the Abzu, which was below the equator in Africa, and then you had Enlil, who was Enlil. Translated means king.
Yeah.
He was the leader of everything above the equator, so that's where you got Hades and Zeus. All the stories in the Egyptians, the Greek,
it's
all the mythology, all comes from the Mesopotamian writings.
Well,
the names have been changed.
yeah,
That's it.
Well, it's where Zoroaster got his first concept of good and evil.
The first real religion, Zoroastrianism. Yeah. That all came from all the stories in the Bible, all the stories in the Mahabharata, all this on and on. They all come from. They're all derived from this. It's like the telephone game.
Yeah.
After thousands of years, it became this story, and then eventually it became this free-floating, omnipotent spirit called Jehovah or God. And, the stories were dumbed down.
Yeah.
Because they were technologically advanced from what they were given 10,000 years before Christ. And then by the time Christ was born, they were dumb again. I mean, they were sheep herders and lived in tents and wore sandals, and they were shitbirds.
Yeah, and I mean, we've talked about the concept of lost knowledge on this show before.
Completely.
And, it is the fact of whenever you look at a lot of ancient civilizations, whenever you look at a lot of the stuff like the Mayans, things like that, the accuracy with which they predicted solar and lunar eclipses, things like that.
Right, yeah, they were able to do all that crazy shit.
Is so far into modern mathematics.
Well, and it so goes beyond that.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's like
it's elementary
the show
in comparison.
Ancient Aliens.
Sure.
Okay, I start talking about this subject, and everybody's like, "Oh yeah, Ancient Aliens." Or Von Daniken's book.
I consider Ancient Aliens a lot.
Very kindergarten in this subject.
A lot,
in a way, it is, right?
I
It's
consider
preschool.
it. I consider it a lot like the shows on Paranormal Activity, and in the right that there's a lot of theory going on. I cannot, as someone who is.
Well, you got Papadopoulos with the hair. Everything he sees, he picks up a beer can. Oh, this is like the shape of this.
Yeah.
Is that a
This can
coincidence?
quite
I think
obviously-
not.
yeah.
Come on, guy.
Yeah.
Get a haircut and that's what I'm saying. It's very It's almost like they make it so ridiculous,
Right.
that it's almost
How they present it.
It's almost to discredit everything else,
Just
to make
about.
you think, oh, look how silly it is.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
like,
look at how
these
fool-
guys are actually
And I've
fools.
heard people say that too.
Now, why don't you get somebody on that actually has some knowledge?
Well, and my favorite, and my wife's favorite phrase that they use all the time is ancient astronaut theorists.
Yes, say.
And it's
believe.
like, well, apparently that is a realm of science. No, not necessarily. It is something that is researched. It is something that, it is a theory, but are there ancient astronaut theorists? Like, I don't know that anybody really graduates with a degree in that.
Well, it's better than being called a conspiracy theorist.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Which,
right?
I'm sorry, but there's nothing wrong with
No.
the term conspiracy theory, because that just means there's a theory about something that one or two or more people were involved in.
Exactly.
That's what conspiracy means. 2 or more people were involved in it. Therefore, that's like if a drug ring could literally be 3 friends who sold weed to each other.
Conspiracy. It is a
conspiracy does not mean it's not true.
I've made that point numerous times on that show. I do not like that classification of the word.
But people don't know what the hell the word means.
Well, because it's been demonized. Because it's been put into this crazed term. And it is because of the fact, like, if conspiracies didn't exist, there's a lot of people that need to be exonerated from jail because they were convicted of conspiracy to commit murder.
That's just a theory. Shut up.
Every single time that a prosecutor comes before a jury, they are putting forth a conspiracy theory. They are putting forth a theory
unless there was only one person involved.
Even still, it's a theory. It's still a theory.
Yeah, it's a theory. It is a theory.
Still a theory.
Now, and a theory doesn't mean that it's not a fact, and it doesn't mean that we don't know it's a fact.
That's right.
Also,
it just means much like the theory of evolution, still technically a theory, missing a couple of skeletons.
All of them, yeah.
But as far as we can tell by scientific fact and genetics, the theory of evolution is sound.
So. All right, now we just because I am a creationist.
No, absolutely. Go ahead.
And if you've listened to anything I said,
no,
I do believe the gods, which God has also taken on. The word God has taken on a form where we think of this all-powerful being,
singular. Yeah.
Now, if I went back 4,000 years ago with this Bic lighter that I'm holding in my hand right now,
you have God,
and I held it up in the air and flicked it, I'm a god.
Right.
Now, that doesn't mean that the word God didn't mean that might have just been dude's name.
Yeah.
That might have been the sergeant who brought his dudes down, or the boss. It might have been his freaking name was God.
Right.
And he was the most powerful of them. So the rest of them were his underlings. They must have been angels.
Sure.
Or maybe they were called angels.
Sure.
Maybe that was like calling employer and employees. Maybe that was just the freaking words, and we turned it into something that was magical and wonderful and huge. And yes, they were huge.
Because they were under him, worked for him.
You know what? I did the supercomputing conference here in Austin. I think you might have worked on it. Yeah. But I was sitting in a room full of people that work at CERN. And I felt like a freaking stupid baby. Not even just a baby, a stupid baby.
Some of the
I
things
felt like I should wear a helmet.
Some of the things that we get to sit in on are friggin' amazing.
Yeah.
Friggin' amazing.
But they were talking, and I was thinking to myself, I've always felt I was pretty intelligent. And I don't really believe that anymore. I really don't.
Yeah.
Because these people, I have no fucking clue what they're saying. I know the words "the" and "to" and all these little words they have in their sentences, but I have no fucking clue what they're talking about.
They're putting it in like scientific terms.
These are people that work on freaking super colliders and shit. They're fucking. One of the guys was Hawking's best friend.
Oh, Jesus Christ!
That was talking, and I was like, "What are you saying? Is this another language? I'm fucking clueless."
Yeah.
So they were gods to me.
Right.
Only because I appreciate intelligence, they were godlike to me.
Yeah.
They were so freaking intelligent.
Right.
And probably pretty stupid universally.
Sure.
Probably very infantile, like...
Much like Einstein, where he had to have...
The Anunnaki would probably be like, shut up. Just stop talking. You look like a fucking moron. Well, here's a helmet and some crayons. Go sit in the corner and drool.
He goes in the corner.
Well, and it's pretty common. And,
nice.
It's pretty well known now through modern studies and stuff like that people like Einstein were basically like Asperger's sufferers.
He actually had autism.
Oh yeah,
he couldn't tie his own shoes. He didn't know his own address.
He said he didn't consider himself very smart. He just was a good thinker, and he would sit and think all day. He said.
Yeah.
So I kind of digressed.
He also had like more convolutions in his brain than the normal humans.
Right.
I was talking about you kind of blew me away a little bit with the evolution thing.
Sure.
So with the whole alien thing, and I don't know how long think they've been possibly. What's your theory on how long they've been possibly visiting and everything else? You believe we came from amoebas and then aliens came down and we're like, oh, here's some things that used to be amoebas. We'll have them.
I believe. Here's what
I guess I read
believe.
so much Sitchin that I'm like.
Here's what I truly believe with it. We came to light through all. You mind grabbing me a Coors there, my friend?
Absolutely.
Little werewolf killer. Shout out to the Scary Dad podcast with that one.
Silver bullet.
Yeah.
Colorado.
A silver bullet to kill the werewolf.
Oh, and look at that. The Rockies are blue.
Oh, it's cold enough.
It is properly cold.
Nice.
That's right. So,
Nice.
what I actually believe is that, number one, there is no true difference between science and religion. They have no competition with each other. They are utterly conformative with each other.
Right.
The fact that God exists and that things happen in a natural timeline perfectly coexist in my book. The fact that we came to be as we know it, as Watson and Crick would put it, where, here's a bunch of amino acids and, lightning struck and that began DNA and that begat amoeba and that, I'm fully
and
cool.
Then 7 million species came out of that.
I'm fully cool with that. I'm fully cool with us evolving from where we came from. Now, where I come into light with our conversation tonight is the fact that somewhere along the line, not necessarily that we've been interfered with, but that we had been enlightened. That this technology had been shown to us. That this
some Star Trek shit.
This revelation occurred.
Yeah.
And one of the interesting episodes recently in the last few seasons of Ancient Aliens, because I don't have cable, but I have been catching up on the last few seasons on Hulu.
I used to watch them.
And one of the interesting
like 'em.
things that they
Love
bring up is caves, and the fact that you go to all these caves across the world,
Cave
and
cities.
there people for some reason lived in caves. They went there as a solace, a place of solace, a place of holiness, a place of. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, there's whole underground cities, massive cities that hold 100,000 people.
Some can reverberate.
And then it's explained why.
Yeah.
And it was in the writings why
Absolutely.
they were built.
And
it's in Wars of Gods and Men.
Yep.
You can read about.
And some
Yeah.
caves
Why
have
they
like
were
hundreds
built.
of rooms, which is insane to know that.
Oh, yeah.
But it's more the fact of the cave drawings of things that are there are reverberant around the world, and they look almost the same. And I truly believe the fact at some point we came into contact with something else that brought us to a greater point of enlightenment, that brought us to a greater point of technology, that literally, much like we're dealing with right now, brought about the end of a human civilization. Just about. To where we do have lost knowledge. We do have...
Oh, we've had our ups and downs. I mean, geez, what was it? Late 1800s Spanish influenza wiped out half of the freaking world's population.
Absolutely.
In, I don't even know, weeks,
Black
months?
Plague. Black Plague.
I
That
swear,
was a third of Europe almost that was wiped out by the Black Plague. So, and that in and of itself was something that coincided in some places with sightings of things in the sky, a mysterious mist coming down.
And I've read in some, I think it was some Jacques Vallée stuff, who was also not quite a Sitchin, but he had a lot of great ideas.
Sure.
So you have a mass proportion, percentage of the human population lives on coastlines.
Yep.
And you have this flood. Say the flood happened.
Sure.
Right.
Really didn't have to be the entire world.
Nope.
Because everybody lived near the water. You always lived near the water.
Yeah.
When you look at the global maps now.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean,
Still to today.
coastlines is the shit.
Yeah.
So if you flood it doesn't have to be a complete world flood.
No,
it
it's
just
gotta
has
be
to flood the coastlines, and there goes 98% of the world's population. Now, once we could have had this. We could have been this technologically advanced 100,000 years ago. I'm not saying I believe that. I'm saying we could have been that 100,000 years ago. Sure. And occasionally, these floods happen. Wipes out 99% of the population. The 1% of the population, if that happens now, we no longer have technology at all. No cars, no nothing.
Yeah.
Right.
If you had some gasoline, they always do in the Walking Dead and these movies.
Yeah.
5 years later, we're still stopping for gas. And no, it's shellacs. Gasoline has a shelf life, and it's fucking done.
Max Thunderdome.
Really not that long either.
Now, granted,
everything's
inside
done.
of the vacuum chamber of a gas tank, totally different situation.
But still, how long does that last?
Yeah.
And then how long does
It's not
it
gonna
last?
be
You
5,
have no
6
more
years.
factories. You have no more cars.
Yeah.
They rust. It doesn't take that long for a car to turn
No.
back to dust.
No, and
In my lifetime, yes, it takes a long time. But fuck, they've rusted out to almost
and
nothing.
there was a show, End of Mankind, I think it was, on Discovery Channel, that literally went through these scenarios and was like, what happened if this would happen?
You're back to freaking being
and
just
literally within 6 to 7 years, the land
It's
has
done.
re-encroached on the cities because
and
of
then think about
disrepair
10,000 years
buildings
later,
are
all that
collapsing.
shit's gone.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just fucking gone.
Yeah, and
Because we build out of stuff. It's not like the clay pots that that we find in the
No, we
dirt
keep
that's
finding
built
in the
out of
dirt.
clay and it's under the dirt. This is shit that degrades.
Yeah.
It's iron, steel, all these things just degrade. We might find an iron deposit 10,000 years later, but
Right.
we just think it's an iron deposit. We don't
Yeah.
think it was a freaking skyscraper.
yeah,
It's just there's a chunk of fucking.
What about
a
that-
whole bunch of iron right here?
yeah.
Stone, you ever heard of that artifact they found in the ocean? Remember, it had 15 something gears to it or something or other.
Man, they have batteries.
That is the Anacothera mechanism.
Yeah, that's the one.
There are batteries that they found in ancient Egypt.
Yeah,
Yeah.
those are
There's
the
all
Baghdad
kinds of
battery.
shit. Flashlights and
Baghdad battery, and the Anacothera mechanism, they've
Yeah.
actually figured out that was actually basically an astronomic calculator
Right.
for the coming Olympic Games.
Coming of the Olympic Games.
It was basically there to,
It was the timer clock you see at the bar that
Yeah.
says
I
when
know,
the next
right?
NFL
Yeah.
season
Yeah,
starts.
right.
yeah. It basically let the countries that participated know that this
Yeah.
is how long they had. It was
Dang.
it was the standard.
That was the
and
standard
it
back
was
then.
that's from what they can figure right now and
Yeah.
what the dates point at was the Olympic Games at the time and that kind of stuff. So
Jesus.
that's the concept behind the Anacothera mechanism as we know it right now.
But you do believe in evolution.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I believe in the fact that science, like you said, a day is 1,000 years,
Right.
And to even go with that concept does not disprove the fact of evolution, does not disprove the fact that...
See, I don't need to disprove evolution. I need somebody.
But there's
to
a
prove
lot
it.
of people-
I've seen no evidence whatsoever. There's been some skulls found that they did DNA testing on and find the kids they were people who had freaking birth defects.
And here's the thing.
I see no evidence. I see a lot of theory.
We are by all genomic
Kind of there
terms
on that.
within 8 markers of chimpanzee.
And we're much closer to pigs than we are chimpanzees. That's why you can't take a chimpanzee heart and put it in a human, but you can put a pig heart
In a human.
Yeah.
in a human. Mm-hmm. So,
Yeah, but
I mean, I look at DNA. Yes, there's a lot of possibilities. There's a lot of combinations you could use to
Yeah.
make any number of things. But it's like music. You know,
I
there's
don't
a lot
think
of notes on a guitar.
I don't think there's enough
But
there
there's so many
yet
that are
to
so
prove.
similar. It doesn't mean it's the same song or the same band. You know?
Yeah.
Or that one song came from the other song. It's just
you can
only
go
have
through.
so many notes
You can go through
use.
every episode of this, and I will always say it is the theory of evolution.
Oh, yeah. No, and I get that.
It's still a
But my
fully
son doesn't
working.
think it is,
It's
but-
still a
How about
fully
this?
Corey, yeah,
because
so
it's
called,
not because it's not taught that way. It's not taught that way in school, and it's unfortunate because that's not proper scientific method. It is still a working theory. It is yet to be fully proven. It's yet
People
to be
talk
fully
that it's
disproven.
proven. People talk that it's
I know.
proven.
I know. And the fact is, we're still missing a few skeletons. We're still missing a few things to bridge all
Always,
gap.
and my
Always
thing is,
missing a few.
after everything I've read, you know, all the Mesopotamian stuff, which is huge. I wish more people knew about it. I wish more people read about it. There was something like 80,000 tablets found. There were cylinders found.
Right, cylinders.
Tons of information. Tons of information. And nobody knows about them. Nobody reads this. If you
nobody
read what
gives them
was written,
credence.
if you read what was written, you'd be like, okay,
Yeah.
Occam's razor.
Yeah.
Does a free-floating, omnipotent spirit you call God, who created everything at a snap of his fingers, make more sense? Or this creation story of shit we know we can almost do now?
Right.
What makes more sense? Or that we came from freaking a muddy pool with lightning hit it and it turned into 7 million species on this planet? Does that make more sense? Or does it make more sense that even the NSA says, yes, we have freaking alien contact?
Yeah.
Why, if it's written, we know we've had alien contact, it's been proven, you know, the government, as tight-lipped as they are about everything, even said so. It's been written down for thousands of years across the globe, the same fucking stories. And not just kooky fucking stories, like very detailed technologies and stuff that they shouldn't fucking know any of it.
Similar descriptions of the people.
Occam's razor. What fucking makes more sense? What's the simplest fucking explanation? Is it that out of the three? Like, seriously, like...
A being with more technology than we had at the time came down,
Well,
and
as
we
a
worshipped as
No,
creationist-
no,
as
they
a
fucking
stone,
created us as a
as a-
slave race to fucking mine
Right,
from.
right.
That's simple.
As a
That's
creationist,
how
is
fucking-
that where you stand? That is our God.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I explained
Yeah.
God in that we give the word too much meaning.
Sure.
We give it too much power.
Right.
My name is Stone. If I did something and stories were told for 10,000 years and it, you know, William Wallace could shoot fucking thunderbolts out his ass and he's 7 feet tall.
Yeah.
You know, Goliath turned into this 12-foot tall freaking giant.
Yeah.
You know, he was probably like 6 foot tall because
probably about
everybody was
7
like 4.5 feet tall back then.
Probably about 7'2".
You know? Yeah.
Something like that.
He was just a big dude.
Yeah.
You know, who
He
could
was
whoop
a-
ass.
He was a minute bull.
Yeah, he was our. Look what Bruce Lee turned into in our lifetime. Oh, the greatest martial arts fucking person in the fucking ever. He could kill anybody with his hands.
Or magicians with like
Yeah, but there's
Houdini,
other dudes who
you
could
know.
fucking fight that good.
Yeah.
Jimi Hendrix wasn't the greatest guitar player of all time.
Right.
He was pretty badass then, and he came up with a lot of things that people weren't doing. But there's fucking kids in the neighborhood who can shred ass.
Right.
They can do shit that Jimi Hendrix could never touch.
Right.
Tony Hawk was fucking awesome when he was 16, but look what they're doing now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You got to put it into perspective. So
Yeah. They weren't pulling 560s back in fucking 84.
560s. That was 1992,
Yeah.
man.
And like Houdini back in his
Tony
day,
Hawk
he
in
was-
his 40s did a whatever 1080.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just like the progression of everything. Well, that's where we got to look at. You know.
Yeah. No, Moore's Law, and that's what we were discussing in the AI episode
Right.
that you were on. And it is the progression of technology. It is.
But with that comes the progression of knowledge, and it should be the acceptance of new knowledge. Like, wait a minute, this isn't even fucking new knowledge.
Yeah.
We've known this shit forever. We let go of it because of religion, and even the people who claim to not be religious, I think evolution took off and really got a hold of everybody because they grew up religious.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, here's a fucking different answer that isn't the shit my grandma shoved down my
Right.
throat. So I'm going to go with this shit. You know, it's like there's other things out there.
As a Catholic,
You know what I mean?
I honestly
Oh my
cannot
God, you
deny
just
that.
explained it all. Thank you. You were a Catholic or are whatever.
I am.
So that completely.
But I know more than
confirms what
I know
I'm doing.
more than
I know
one
you do.
person.
I know you do.
That went through the steps because that is what their family expected them to do, not because it was their
and
educated
that's what I'm saying.
choice
But
as a
you're
person.
still, you can be, you know, my mother was a Jehovah's Witness. I grew up in that. She told me later on in life, I knew by the time you were 5, you're not buying into any of it because I was questioning everything, and she had no answers to anything. Because she wasn't. There's a prescribed. These are the prescribed. The answers you're to give to these questions, and I'm like, okay, here's the Bible. Where's the dinosaurs?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, right? Exactly. Yeah. Where are they at?
Adam and Eve, first people. Well, then how come when they had sons and daughters, and their sons and daughters left and went off to other lands to marry sons and daughters of other families?
Yeah.
Or
Hello.
Yeah.
What the fuck are you talking about? That at 5, this doesn't make sense to me. How are they the first and there's other fucking people?
Yeah.
What are you talking about? Like, you can't. And because of that religious hold, that even the biggest skeptics, the biggest skeptics on what I'm talking about, that lean more towards evolution.
Yep.
Generally, were raised the most religious.
Yeah.
And it's like their big middle finger, you know, in the air to the way they were raised. Fuck you.
Yeah.
I believe in evolution. It's like
you got to be open minded.
that's not a freaking reason to believe in evolution.
Yeah.
You know, there's other fucking answers out there that make a lot more sense. That are a lot, you know. You were saying earlier that religion and science go hand in hand and all.
Sure.
Absolutely. Just had this talk with my mother, who's very intelligent, but she's very religious. So, anyway,
go ahead.
She was saying that religion doesn't exist without science, because say if you believe in the Bible.
Right.
God would be the greatest engineer on the planet ever, and the greatest scientist. If he created everything, that's a lot of goddamn science and a lot of pretty badass engineering.
Yeah,
just the human body is some pretty insane engineering. We can't do some shit like that. No, that's way beyond anything we could even comprehend. Creating a life out of nothing. So. Yes, it does go hand in hand. People want to fight that. No, I believe in science. I don't believe in religion. Well, it's kind of the same thing. Either way, there was a beginning to us.
And one of the things that we bring up frequently on this show, and I can't wait to start having Brooke Shipley on because she's actually a scientist. What the dangers of treating science as religion, and I mean by following those strict rules, following those rules that can't be broken, because
science does become a religion.
Through treating science as a religion, we actually deny ourselves a lot of information and a lot of possibility.
Right.
Exactly.
Well, it's like saying I you know,
so
I've got
there's
a
dangerous.
I like 6-foot blondes. Well, you're missing out on a lot.
There's a dangerous. There's
a lot of possibilities out there.
There's a dangerous line to be tread on both sides of the fence.
Mm-hmm. True that.
Mm-hmm. Both scientifically and theologically. And and that's why I love having you on, because you are right in the middle, and you know, you do view a lot of these things from a common sense point of view, and that's why I love having Steve-O on, because I view everything in a philosophic point of view and a scientific theorem point of view, because that's what I was taught.
Right.
You know, in college, it was all philosophy and, you know, prove it through theorem. If you can't prove it, I mean, hell. That's half the reason that, you know, Galileo got in trouble and was excommunicated, was the fact of, not that what he was teaching wasn't fact. It was the fact of, by all philosophic proof at the time, he could not prove it to be fact. So now you're teaching...
a lot of people that have actually proven something
Well,
to be a fact have
that's one of
vanished
those
too.
things.
Well, that's true too.
Governments
that
don't like
catch-22
the
But it
answer
was
sometimes.
it was a catch-22 of the fact of he couldn't prove it to be fact, and he was teaching at a university in the name of the church, and he was teaching
That
this
kind of
as a
sounds
truth.
like UT.
Kind of. And he was teaching it in the name of the church, in the name of truth, and at the time, he could not philosophically prove through theorem that they had that this was truth. It was utter scientific theory, and it ended up to be proved, and that's why they,
I think
disallowed the excommunication and stuff like that.
I think at a certain time frame in humanity, it started to where we tried to be gods and try to replicate these things. Like, now we can do babies in a test tube and stuff. We don't even need anything really.
Well, and that was
and all the technology.
We call it
stuff.
advancement.
Yeah,
that was the episode that Randy and I did and Katie, where
exactly.
it was literally they coaxed.
We're trying to mimic and do these things.
Three-parent
Knew
babies.
about.
Well, they literally
knew about, really.
They literally coaxed these mouse.
We could do it.
These mouse eggs into becoming embryos.
Yeah.
Without being fertilized.
Without being fertilized.
Through chemical signal, and
Does
they
it?
they stayed viable for a little while, then they went away. But they found that if they coaxed them into that and then injected the sperm, that they would stay viable. Mm-hmm. And the same situation is with humans. Apparently, they can coax an egg, and the question is, could they coax a skin cell? By doing this, could they coax any cell in the human body to be able to reproduce? And that was the point that was taken by the University of St. Thomas ethics professor, who is a philosopher and stuff like that. That literally said, at that point, why are we even procreating? Why do we even have the natural means of procreation?
I don't believe
that's
it's an
the
ethics issue.
Okay, go ahead.
Because, I mean, screw ethics. Like, whether it's right or wrong, you're playing God and all that. I don't want it. I don't want people to live longer. I don't want, I'm going to sound callous and fucked up, but I don't want all disease eradicated. And
no,
I mean, we're already 7 billion people.
Right.
We're overpopulated. Do we really need everybody to live longer so you have 150-year-olds and babies at the same time?
Well,
I mean, Jesus Christ, we're going to freaking kill ourselves off by trying to save ourselves. It's so stupid.
Collapse the system.
There's a reason things like the Spanish influenza happens and the bubonic plague happens.
Well,
you need to have a controlled freaking amount of... Any species does it.
Right.
The slowest buffalo gets picked off. It's to control the herd,
Survival
the number of the
fittest.
herd, so you don't have too many and they overgraze and there's no food and then they all die.
Yeah.
And we want to. We're so fucking arrogant
Natural
as
law.
humans. We think we're so special and we were created for some grand purpose. And no, you're a fucking slave.
Yeah.
You're created to be a slave. You have no fucking purpose.
There was a book written years ago that I'm a huge fan of. I love it. It's called Methuselah's Children by Robert Heinlein. I've got it up on the screen here. And literally, it posits the fact that science gets to the point where they can literally stop aging.
Really?
But this is reserved for the elite.
Oh, I'm sure.
And
It's
a lot of
reserved for
actors.
the elite of society.
I just saw Matt Dillon. He's like 55 years old. I swear that kid doesn't look any different than he did when he was 25. What the hell's going on here?
So, it's interesting that, here's something that was put forth in 1941. This book came out.
Heinlein.
Yeah, and Robert Heinlein is one of the huge fathers of science fiction as we know it today. He came up with so many stories, so many. I mean, The Matrix was basically drawn off his story. Oh my God, I can't even remember the book now.
That's his Dudes and Beers.
It's Dudes and Beer, and we're a few beers into it. But The Matrix was basically drawn off the story of people taking the drug Soma and having an assigned job in life. And people, a couple of people eventually stopped taking the drug and realized that they can get out and go out and discover the world the way it was.
Right.
And
there's been a lot of movies that I'm sure were spawned off of that.
Brave New World is the book by Robert Heinlein. It's interesting to go into those concepts because as you were talking about, genetic engineering, things like that, aliens doing genetic engineering upon us, engineering us for certain tasks.
We were apparently just the last.
Yeah.
Because they were looking for a subservient creature
and easily controlled.
That had the right form to do the work they wanted done. And according to them, a lot of these mythological creatures, the Cyclops and so were just predecessors. They were attempts at creating, and they like, oh no, I'm not going to do that, or they're too grumpy, they're too violent, they're too all these creatures. Because they said they mixed their essence with the essence of beasts of the field to try and create, the species they needed to...
The chimeric process, the process of mixing multiple gene lines and things like that. And, it is a concept that's brought up whenever you start talking about ancient technology, whenever you start talking about ancient tradition, ancient religion, because there's numerous cases throughout traditions, throughout mythologies, where man is mixed with beast, centaurs,
chimera,
all kinds of stuff. The concept of chimera, the griffin, even in English.
It's listed.
Yeah.
It's listed in Mesopotamian.
And if you
text.
look at even their cherubim, it's a mix of.
It's a mix.
It's a mix of eagle, man, and lion. Which interestingly enough, being a biblical person, are three of the things from the gospel.
Lion.
Mark.
That's one beauty
Mark, Luke, and John.
Sitchin's writings, because he refers back to. He makes no claims that anything is true.
Yeah.
That he's saying, but he compares them all, and he'll tell you scriptures to look up, and he'll tell you passages in the Mahabharata you can look up, and all these different religious texts around the world that you can look at,
very similar,
and compare them. And not only similar, a lot of them were just exact.
Right.
And they were written 10,000 years before
like
the other things were written. They weren't. Once they were written. Later on, they were written in a Holy Spirit kind of form instead of this is just a fucking big dude who was really smart. They were petty. They were immature. They were bullshit. They had a lot of squabbles between themselves over stupid shit.
The lesson of the Tower of Babel.
They weren't like it's not like the Anunnaki were just these robed beings that sat up there and meditated and just they were fucking childish, and they were,
like I just said, the whole
had no jobs.
The whole
they flew around and they had technology that just did everything for them. They could just be petty and be bullshit.
Yeah. Well, and like I said, the whole message of the Tower of Babel and the fact that at one point we were unified, and when we tried to attain the knowledge of God, that we were knocked down and separated.
Wars of gods and men.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of like the Stargate.
And that's when the war started, and that's when they supposedly built all these cave cities. You had to be underground because they were flying around up there.
Yeah.
So that was it was really a revolt. Like, we were figured out, hey, they created us to do the work they didn't want to do anymore.
Yeah.
Guess what? We don't want to do.
Much like the revolt.
We don't want to do this shit either. We're built.
Much like the story of the revolt of the angels.
Yeah, and in the Bible it says we're created in God.
It
actually absolutely does. It said in their image.
In their image. Absolutely.
So if I was trying to explain this to my wife just last night,
because there was a whole conversation. There was a whole conversation.
There was
that happened before the creation of man, and that's what people forget, is that there's a whole conversation that happens, and we will create them in our image.
Yeah.
And that's just it.
If we're created in their image, or even if you say created in God's image,
sure,
that means we look like him.
Right.
Yeah.
That means he's not a free-floating, omnipotent spirit.
No, he's not in a toga.
And it says in the Bible he is of the flesh.
Yep.
Moses saw him on the mount when he was after he received
he
the
walked in the
Ten
garden
Commandments.
amongst us.
He was walking down the mountain path to go down the mountain, and God said, "Step into this crag in the side of the mountain."
Yep.
An invisible hand raised in front of the crag, like a force field or whatever.
Yep.
God walked past, the hand lowered, and Moses stepped out and looked at God's back as he walked away. This is not a free-floating, omnipotent spirit. The whole story is alien. Even if you just look at when the angel went to Moses and told him that God was coming down on the mount. He came to him and told him, he said, when God descends on the mountain, and if God is everywhere at all times, why does he have to descend on anything? Right. Point one.
True.
But then he said,
right.
He said, no one should be on the mountain when God descends, or they shall surely be burned up. Now, what the hell is coming out of the bottom of the thing he's descending in? A bunch of fire coming out from under the thing that he's descending on.
Yeah.
Onto the mountain.
He's just don't be on
come
the
on. There's a
top
freaking spaceship gonna land on the friggin' mountain. Don't be there because you're gonna get burned up from whatever kind of discharge is coming out of the freaking ship.
Not only that,
you couldn't tell those cavemen.
The burning bush that didn't burn. Man, if I had a flashlight and I stood behind a freaking bush and I didn't want you to really see my face, and I shined it through the bush, it's a burning bush and it didn't burn. I mean, these are simple explanations. You live in 2017.
Sure.
You have a flashlight. We have all the technology to make the Ten Commandments visit happen.
Yeah.
It's that simple.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, you're right.
And then
he
took a laser. He pointed his finger, because if I held a laser thing like this, you wouldn't know. It was back then. It wasn't coming out of my finger.
Right.
Sure. For one, because I got a freaking flashlight.
He's able to point a dot or something.
And I cut out 2 tablets and I wrote some basic rules on it that are just good rules to keep you alive. Don't covet your neighbor's wife because you're going to get pissed at you and probably kill you.
Yeah.
Don't eat freaking animals with a split hoof because y'all don't know how to cook pork correctly so that it's going to
get rid of trichinella.
You're not going to die.
Yeah.
All these things, don't tattoo your skin for the dead because you don't have freaking clean needles. You don't have an autoclave. These are all just stay alive kind of rules that are in the Bible. They really were just great things to live by.
No, Leviticus is straight up nothing but the rules of life.
And it's all just to keep you safe.
Yeah,
it's not like nothing godly about it. It's just like, hey, you don't want to die because y'all are pretty primitive.
If you're living,
let me tell you how to stay alive.
If you're living in the desert, it's some pretty common sense damn rules.
You're living in a freaking tent eating.
Especially as a communal
shit that falls off a freaking bush and you calling it manna because you think you're gonna say God sent it to you. Man, it's a shit that falls off a bush, bro. That's it. There's berries on that bush. Go eat them. That doesn't mean God put them there for you. No, it's a freaking bush. They just grow there. You know, it's just. I try. My wife's very spiritual and very. She grew up. You know, her grandmother's a pastor.
Sure.
Raised her, and she owns her own church, and she calls herself the apostle, and literally an apostle. I'm like, okay, you know, there's only 12, and you know,
been there.
You can't call yourself this shit, like if you didn't say you were one. But anyway,
love the title.
So whatever she taught, that was it. That's it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm trying to explain to her, you know, there's more to it than what just your grandmother said. So many people are so stuck in what.
Yeah.
Propaganda's on the internet, or you know, there's only 2 freaking possibilities. You either got religion or you got evolution. That's the only 2 possibilities. That's like telling people there's only Republicans and Democrats.
God, Jesus Christ.
No, there's absolutely fucking not. There's just the only 2 people that have a chance.
Yeah.
just like religion and evolution, because they're the most popular. Because that's what, like I said, either you were raised religious and you stuck with it, or you were raised religious and you were like, "Fuck you, I'm going with this other option." I don't like the Republicans, so I have to be a Democrat. No, you don't. You can be a libertarian. You can be all number of things.
And if you do that, you're a nut job.
Exactly. If you don't buy into one of those two theories, you're a nut job. And if you buy into the other one that I don't believe in, you're a nut job.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I'm like, fuck all of y'all. This is my middle finger.
Yeah.
Like,
and that's exactly where I'm at with it, because to me, like I said, all too.
But are you? You just kind of backed up evolution, and said you were a Catholic at the same time. And I love you. I'm not trying to call you out or anything.
No,
I just I'm trying to understand it.
Yeah.
You know? And from my knowledge of Catholics,
the Catholic Church has straight up come and said that there is no qualms between science and evolution.
And I mean, the Pope pretty much say there's pretty much probably aliens and
recently he did.
There was the fact that a few years ago the Vatican did come out and say that were the existence of extraterrestrials to come about, that it would not change the salvific story, that it would not change any belief or anything like that.
And what I've gotten from religious people who are willing to see a little bit outside of the box.
Sure. I'm pretty far outside of the box. Religious.
And like I said, I grew up around Jehovah's Witnesses. I question them a lot. But a lot of the younger generation aren't stuck on the same.
Everything a lot.
Aren't still on the same. They still go with the God story, but
sure.
Why not? If God created us on this teeny tiny planet out in the middle of the vast universe, why not everywhere else too? Maybe he looked at us and was like, "Oh, they fucked up. Gonna make another one's over here." Why wouldn't he? Why would he be so freaking narrow-minded? You're going to make this vast universe.
Yeah.
Why would you be so narrow as to just pick one teeny tiny planet and focus on it?
Right.
You're calling him stupid.
Yeah.
You're really insulting. If there is this grand creator God,
and
you're pretty much doomed for having thought you were that special.
Well, and that's exactly what the church came out and said, was the fact that the existence of aliens, number one, would not change the teachings of the church, and it would not remove the salvific story of Christ. So, by all precepts of the church, it would not change our religion.
Right now, and you can set it up, but with enough talk like that, where you're covered, even if it comes out that they created us, because I told you there was God.
Sure,
and He's pretty much all powerful compared to us.
Sure.
Well,
but it doesn't change the
which boils down to my beliefs.
Well, yeah, and
and you can easily spin the whole thing.
Well, and
where
like
you
they
said,
said,
I told you
it doesn't change the salvific story of Christ. It doesn't change the story of the passion, death, and resurrection. It doesn't change that miracle. It doesn't change any of that. The existence of aliens
doesn't redefine what they
doesn't
meant by
change
miracles.
that narrative. It doesn't change that story. So, by all intents and purposes, the existence of aliens would not change the theology of the Catholic Church.
Right.
Is what they're saying.
Well, there's too much money to be lost.
There's a
lot of people that stick with them either way.
By all philosophic terms, they're absolutely right. It would not change.
Well, it might not change their teachings, but there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be like,
it's going to change some stuff. Believe me. but like they said, it doesn't necessarily change the teaching of the church.
Right.
And I can utterly see that. I can utterly see that logic.
Got to stick to your guns.
Yeah. Well, I differ in from my faith in a lot of ways. And I've said that numerous times on this podcast. There are numerous things that I believe that are true that are different than what my faith would say would be.
Well, I mean, so you're saying it's like a Republican who's not pro-life, or a Democrat who's like, you know what, I'm very liberal, I believe in a lot of stuff, but kind of pro-life. That's one thing I'm not down with.
Yeah.
Y'all killing the babies. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Yeah,
Sure.
That's what I try and tell a lot of people who are so. You see a lot of millennials, a lot of liberals, a lot of
a lot of people in general.
Well, I tend to, our business, we work with a lot of millennials, and
Sure.
I really don't run across any Republicans. But, so I see more of this, and it's you know what I'm saying.
Hey, buddy.
You get it. Where they feel like they have to subscribe to every belief,
Yeah.
every tenet of the democratic way. You can't just be down for some of it. You have to be down with every bit of it, whether you like it or
Yeah.
not, because
don't
your
like
democratic
that.
friends
Yeah.
will say you're not. It's just like this just happened. Hold on, the Women's March.
Yeah.
The Women's March. There
God,
was
we got
one-
Oh
political.
shit!
No,
Oh shit!
No, not at all. Not at
Go
all.
ahead. Go ahead.
Well, so they're having this big march, and there was that one women's group.
Yeah.
The only thing they were not down with was the pro-choice thing.
Yeah.
Absolutely demanded that they were not a part of it.
Yeah.
Of
No.
the march.
Yeah. Uninvited.
Uninvited.
They were.
because
They
you
were
don't believe
originally
every
a
single
sponsor.
thing. we believe
Originally
in.
a sponsor.
Right.
And then
I
asked
think
to
they
leave.
helped put the thing together.
Yeah. Asked to leave. Asked to
Right.
leave.
But that's my point. Is like you don't have to. You were saying that your scientific beliefs don't always jive with every bit of your religious beliefs,
Yeah. And,
like evolution and
Right.
Catholicism.
and I'm
which
okay. And
I'm not sure have ever been said in the same
I am.
sentence.
I know, right?
I guess I'm good enough at my justifications
Mm-hmm.
in life to be able to reconcile those differences.
You know what? It's not even about that. It's because that's all for everybody else.
It is.
Fuck everybody else. Because do you think, knowing Stone Winchester, that I give two fucking shits?
No.
Right. And that's
No.
my thing. I'm the same way
Yeah.
with politics as
Yeah.
I am with this subject.
Right.
Absolutely.
Fuck both of y'all.
Yeah.
And your fucking religion and your science.
Yeah.
Because both of y'all are full of fucking shit. You won't fucking accept anything that's not part of every fucking bit that you have to fit into
Yeah,
a
yeah,
fucking
yeah.
stereotype of
Yeah.
these are the exact
People have to
things
find
you
a
believe
group.
in.
Group
You know-
I'm in the
associate
middle.
You know that not to be true here at this table, but
Right.
I know
Yeah,
the
that's what I'm saying.
example
It's
you're
like
making. I know the example.
Well, no,
you're
you're
making.
saying you just said like your religious beliefs and your scientific beliefs don't always jive. That's what I'm saying. So what I'm saying is in the middle. You're not going to buy into. Okay, I'm a Catholic. I can't believe in evolution, or I'm an evolutionist. I can't believe in Catholicism. So that's what I'm saying. I wasn't knocking you.
Yeah, no.
I'm saying you're middle of the road, like, hey, I fucking take the best parts of all of it. That's what I fucking believe in.
Right, and that's what-
y'all can all like take
like
all the
watching the
shit
news
just to get
today.
one fucking thing you agree with. You can take all the other shit along
I
with
consider.
it.
I consider.
Have to read between.
I consider a lot of things to be very narrow-minded on both sides of the fence.
Right.
Right.
And
That's
and
why I'm sitting on it.
Yeah.
And my ass is sore.
exactly, exactly. I couldn't have described it better. Absolutely.
I wanted to go back on what Stone was saying. Like
Do
maybe I think it was summer, but like we had this little thing once, like in a classroom in school, and so like you whisper something in one Kids of the Year.
Oh, telephone.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, telephone game.
Yeah, the
Telephone.
one you were telling. And by the time it gets to the other end of the room, it's a little bit variated.
It's a little bit different.
It's not
different.
even a little bit
Yeah.
varied. It's
Yeah.
not even
It's
close.
vastly different.
It's like, where did you get that?
Vastly
You know?
different.
And
That was one of the exercises that I used in my first
Yeah.
class.
Yeah.
Every year, no matter what
that's-
grade I taught.
So there was a
proven
movie
in minutes.
called Rumors. Do you remember the movie?
Uh-huh.
It had what's his name? Daryl from Walking Dead.
Yeah.
was
Oh,
in
it had Daryl?
He was young.
Yeah.
Really?
He was very young.
I don't see that.
And it was a professor. The guy's a dick in every movie. I don't know if you remember the movie. It's that curly-haired guy. But they did an experiment in this college course. He's like, we're going to start a rumor. And see how it turns out. Yeah. It ended up the murder and all kind. I mean, it went really bad. But watch the film. It's exactly, what something simple turns into.
Yeah. It turns into
huge,
something. It turns into something absolutely out of control.
Well, it always turns big.
Yeah.
It was nothing, and now it's big.
Yeah.
William Wallace is 7 feet tall and can shoot thunderbolts out his ass.
Exactly.
Mel Gibson is actually kind of short.
Yeah. Yeah, he was actually a pretty average dude. Yeah. And that's just it,
Sometimes when I like to shoot to the point, sometimes about like religion and God and stuff like that and what I believe, I guess, or whatever, it's like, okay, God, right? God. Okay, yeah, we figured Jesus might have been the man and he walked the earth and stuff like that. Okay, we know that. But, okay, let's say God, right? Okay, God, he wasn't born of this earth, right?
No, he's an alien.
Yeah, so he must have been alien of this planet because he was not born of this earth.
This was my discussion with my wife last night. Yeah. I said he definitely, whether he's what you say he is.
Like if you want to go straight to the point, he wasn't of this earth.
I told her, I said, if you want to believe what you believe or what I believe, either way, he's an alien.
He was definitely something different.
She said, no, he's not. I said, is God an earthling?
No.
Well, no. Then he's an alien.
He's as close to Kal-El as you can get.
I don't care like what you say.
He was
he's not
born
from here.
His
he
son
ain't from
was,
my neighborhood.
Not him, though.
Yeah. Well, and,
his son's body.
You've definitely got the whole story of the Christ not only going to the east in the Apocrypha, in the Gospel of Thomas, and learning from Tibetan monks, things like that. And they even record, Tibetan monks record somebody at the same time coming from the same area.
Right.
And shortly after that is the story in the Bible where Jesus is actually lost at the temple. And Mary and Joseph leave him behind and then come to find him like, there's only one reason why the priests of the temple would be listening to like this 11-year-old kid. And that's if he was somebody like incredibly wise, number one. Number two, perhaps he was a student of Kabbalah. Perhaps, yeah. Because it was rare for a student that young to be taken on by a Kabbalistic priest. But the study of Kabbalah and a lot of the things, and especially a lot of the ways that Jesus taught that we were connected to God, definitely ring to Jewish Kabbalistic tradition and the concept
I think it was.
Did you ever see the movie The Man from Earth?
Yes.
And that's what when he was sitting down telling, he was a university professor. I don't know if you've ever seen it. University professor, blah, 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 talking to his friends, telling him his story. Oldest man on the planet. And he talked about that he studied under Buddha.
Yeah.
And he studied under... actually, I think that was the main thing. He studied under Buddha and then went back west to teach Buddha's ways and kindness and all this.
Yeah.
But that he was actually Jesus.
Yeah.
He originally said, well, it was a character from the Bible. Just, I don't want to tell you yet. But like... because they wouldn't have listened.
Well, and,
great movie.
I think that's the overall arching story of this episode, and the overarching concept is the fact that we as people tend to generalize things. We as people, it's interesting that we started off with the NSA coming out and declassifying material and going into stuff that's been declassified for centuries.
Yeah, they really...
That's been out there.
They really just declassified the 29 messages that were the same thing over and over again that they have. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is just confirming more that what the Mesopotamians wrote is probably more accurate than thought before.
Exactly.
So we get repetitive stuff of stuff we already really knew in a way.
Yeah. Yeah. And, we as people need to look for those patterns. We need to keep an eye out for those patterns. We need to keep an eye out for when we are getting to that point. We are getting to that point, even right now at the end of this episode. And I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in tonight. Thank you so much, Stone, for being on.
Thank you.
And until next time, everybody, if you can't be good,
Be good at it.
We'll talk to you soon. Take care, everybody.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Dudes and Beer Podcast. To listen to our audio streams and chat with us live, download the official Dudes and Beer app for both Android and iDevices, available on the Google Play and iTunes markets. For more episodes, content, and information, visit us online at dudesandbeer.com. You can also find our episodes on Spreaker, SoundCloud, YouTube, Stitcher, or your favorite podcast service. Dudes and Beer is a proud member of the Revolution Digital Group family of podcasts. Thanks for listening, everybody, and until next time, drink responsibly.
That was a great fucking episode, guys.
That was. It was in depth. It was very wide ranged. It covered a lot.